Anyone who follows our podcast regularly knows what's in store today. The rest of you have read it in the episode title. Lola Woetzel is our guest and in a very special setting. 2 weeks ago, the German version of the 1 Hour China book was published on Amazon, edited by Damian and Thomas. The authors are Lola Woetzel and Jeffrey Towson, and we had the great honor of having Lola with us at the first event of the book launch tour in Shanghai. She answered several questions about the book with a focus on the topic of consumers. But that's not all. She gives us a glimpse into her life and work and answers questions from our audience. Since it's a live recording, the audio quality isn't as good as usual, but I think the excellent content makes up for it. As always, we hope you enjoy the episode. Leave us likes, comments and feedback, and feel free to order the book on Amazon if you want to learn more, as an ebook or paperback.
Made in China. Von der Werkbank der Welt zum größten Konsumentenmarkt und Technologieführer. Eine Reise durch das Leben, Business und die Kultur im Reich der Mitte mit Damian Maib und Thomas Derksen.
Guten Abend and good evening, everyone. My name is Thomas. I'm German. As you know, most of the audience here is German, and we are here to celebrate the publication of the 1 Hour China book in German. And we decided to do this event in English. Yeah, so welcome to Shanghai. But the main reason is because we have Lola Woetzel here, who is one of the most distinguished China experts. Although you also speak German, Lola, and you will show off your skills later, but we thought English is the common language, so that's why we will conduct this event in English. And you have to bear with my German accent. Right? So Damian also has, we both have a German-English accent, but I think we can manage it. I will shut up now, so please join me in welcoming Damian and Lola to the stage.
Perfect. Thank you, Thomas. Very nice and funny introduction. That's why that's always Thomas' part, actually. It's never mine, right? He's good at that. So, Lola, how about you introduce yourself a little bit to our guests and our audience?
So, pleasure. So, I'm Lola Woetzel. It's hard to sort of remember to say this. I'm a former partner at McKinsey. I retired in May. I'm now emeritus. So, 40 years at McKinsey, 40 years in China. I led our practice here from the start. My interests and background is everything from urbanization, real estate, infrastructure, finance. I was one of the directors of the McKinsey Global Institute, which is our internal research organization. And I am a child of China. So my father was born here, and my grandfather moved here in 1926. So I said, Lo Shanghai, and raised 2 children here, and very proud Shanghainese person. That's me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. One applause for Lola. It's a great honor. You are expert. Everyone wants to have you at their events. And in the invitation, in the first draft, I wrote, Lola is the founder of McKinsey in Shanghai. And Damian said, maybe this is problematic to say it, but you established the Shanghai office of McKinsey, right?
Technically, there was a guy here before I came. His name was Ulrich Roeder. I don't know if anybody here knew him, but I doubt it. Anyway, and I think Shanghai did a good job. I think we rode the benefits of the Chinese economic reforms, and we kept up with it, basically.
Yeah, so before we begin, we want to ask 3 quick questions, not about business, but a little bit personal. So, Damian, you will start.
Perfect. You know that from our podcast, always 3 little questions, unexpected, not prepared. So if you were stranded on a lonely island, what were the 3 things you would love to bring with you?
Okay.
The German version of the 1 Hour China book, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. The audio version.
The audio version, yeah.
Version. And with that, of course, I'll be very practical here. I would like to have a wireless tower, a satellite link, and a phone. So get off the island.
So you can still continue doing your research, right?
To get off the island.
Oh, okay. Very smart. Yeah. So the second question would be, you have been working for McKinsey almost your whole life and been a professor. But if you could choose any job without worrying about money, what would it be?
Designing cities. I mean, I think the city is our collectively greatest invention. It's it's what drives human progress, and I like to have my impact. So so designing cities.
Good. So I think there's a lot of things in Shanghai which has your touch to it. That's pretty impressive. So you have many skills, but what is a skill maybe that you would like to have that you don't have?
Oh, there are a lot. Question.
Piano skills. We had a guest who said piano skills. He would love to play piano.
Well, so jazz guitar. I play classical, and as a result, I'm unable to improvise. So
okay,
jazz is my next horizon. So yeah,
great. Looking forward. So our next event, we will maybe have a little jazz guitar solo from you. So let's go to business, right? Like the serious part. So a lot of guests were asking the 1 Hour China book. That's the name of your book, and in German we just said das 1 Hour China Buch. So it's no big difference. Why did you choose this title, the 1 Hour China book?
Well, first of all, we started this about, I think, probably a decade ago now, maybe a little bit longer. And Jeff, I have to give a lot of credit to my co-author here, Jeff, because he really drove a lot of this thinking. But basically, the idea was that we have a lot of people who are coming to China for the first time. They have a business background. They're on a plane or they're in an exco, and they need to learn about China quickly because they really don't know, and all of a sudden it affects their business. So we need something. And so this was that. So the idea was like something you can read in an hour, doesn't cost you very much, gives you kind of the key points, and that's what it's intended to do. It's an introduction, to be clear. It's not intended to be exhaustive, but it is intended to familiarize you with some things so that when you do show up, you're not feeling totally at sea. You don't know what's going on, and you can then, your mileage may vary as far as your experience. But that's the point. Introductory book.
And it became a bestseller, right?
It went very well. I think that it hit a nerve. This was so back in the 2010s and late up to COVID. I mean, I think there was a lot of corporate interest. First of all, as I said, a lot of people who were like coming to China needed to read something, and or having an exco focused around it, and so there was that. But there was also more broader interest, and I mean, I won't take too much credit for the quality, but what was said more or less was good enough that it created a good reputation. So that was the benefit.
So we hope the German book can also be a bestseller. So the concept of the book is you were talking about 6 megatrends and telling 6 stories about the megatrends. The megatrends were urbanization, manufacturing, consumers, money, brain power, and internet. Right. So the 6 megatrends that drove and still drive the Chinese economy. And today we want to talk about one of the 6 megatrends. All of them are very interesting. And we want you to decide about which one we talk. Okay, consumers. Wow, thank you. An applause. Very good job. I wanted to talk about consumers. I worked in a bank before, and I don't wanted to take the risk to talk about banking system or whatever, because we think consumers is interesting for everyone, and everyone is connected somehow to consumers. Let's start. So because we said you will show off your German skills, so we would like you to read the first paragraph of this book in German. Very looking forward to it.
Okay. Aufsteigende Verbraucher. Die Macht der chinesischen Verbraucher ist unser dritter Megatrend. Die zuvor diskutierten Trends waren über 2 Jahrzehnte hinweg erst zunehmenden wirtschaftliche Kräfte. Der dritte Trend hat erst in den letzten 10 Jahren richtig Fahrt aufgenommen.
Oh yeah, applause, big applause for this. So you actually have some kind of German heritage, right? You talked about it in our podcast.
Yes, no, I'm a child of Shanghai, but really a German child of Shanghai. My grandparents fled Germany, and my grandfather was German. My grandmother was Jewish. They left in 1926 to work for IG Farben in Shanghai. My family has a lot of irony in it. And my grandfather traded aniline here and built the German-Chinese Chemical Construction Company, which since was responsible for Tianyuan chloralkali and the PVC plants and a few other things, which are still operating today under the Huai Group. So yes, that's my family background. My father was born here. And they all left in 1947, as the Jewish Synagogue Museum says, they all went home. In fact, they didn't. They went to Chile, but close enough.
Impressive. So you've got a really Shanghainese, more Shanghainese than other Shanghainese.
I feel very Shanghai. I feel everybody here is basically the Odongrongko. You guys are all just basically movable populations. And I occasionally go and visit my family's entire old apartment, which was in the Laojinjiang. And I think, who are these people who have taken over my place? We move on. As Shanghainese, we're very resilient. We do.
Love it. Perfect. That's very unique. And I think you're one of the very few, if not one of the, I mean, that's why, that's the only one probably. That's why we have you here. That's what kept you in the position. That's why you're the best one who has written the book. And it's an honor for us to have translated that. And now, Lola, why do you think this mega trend was worth mentioning in the book?
Well, I think first of all, as you were saying, Thomas, I mean, it's very relatable. I mean, most people on some level, everybody's a consumer. So it was very important to sort of make sure there was a touch point. But the graphic that we put together, I think has meaning. We certainly spent a lot of time on it. Was some urbanization is kind of the basic. It's basically, before in the in 1950s, 60s, 70s, my grandfather would have recognized Shanghai. It was exactly the same. And then all of a sudden in the 70s and 80s, things started to happen. So that urbanization was really the founding. And that required us to manufacture a lot of stuff. And so the manufacturing happened in these factories. And that's true, but it's unfortunately not very accessible to most people. Most people don't go inside those factories, so you don't know. What everybody then started to realize that as China became such a capable country, that generated a lot of consumption. And that is what everybody sees. So consumption, and in turn, consumption, of course, became its own driver, and it's still on its way. But we very much would say that consumption is, the future of the economy. I think there's a little bit in the chapter about that, but that's why. And then finally, it's a global factor. I mean, Asia is now about 2/3 of the global middle class in the year 2030. It's somewhere between where it was and where it will be, and China is about half that. So, and there's no question that, the products of the global future, including the shower heads and the automotive components, and those will be made, designed, and largely purchased in China. And so, understanding the Chinese consumer is of global relevance.
And by explaining the Chinese consumers, you used a lot of stories in your book. You used sometimes more than one short story about consumers, urbanization, and so on. It's mostly from the business world. And which stories did you use for the consumer part, and why did you think these stories were interesting for the readers?
Well, we had a lot of random stuff. Jeff has a very wide-ranging set of interests, so I have picked up a lot of information over the years. But we tried to pick out, first of all, stories about companies and how they competed, so that it's not just about the market, it's also about what's going on in the market, who's winning, and why are they winning. That's really very important for us. And then we also try to sort of say, what are some of the weird things that happen because of this mega trend? And so on the company side, for consumers, I recall we did Tingyi, Kangshifu, which was just this wonderful thing about how you can become a billionaire by selling noodles. It's not really something you would expect as a high-tech product, and it isn't. But it made sense for China, value for money. The Wei brothers are great guys, and I did some work for them back in the day. And it was just a classic story. And then we had another story of as I recall, the Hawaii guys, and that was a different story, but that was sort of saying, well, this is a different kind of product. It's not noodles, it's movies. And so, that's different. So we wanted to sort of show a different part of the thing. And I think the last one we did was something about Kafka, because, this was like, everybody does ask that question, how do you compete with the state? Or how does the state compete? And I think Kafka is probably about the best you can see in terms of the state competing. It's a vertically integrated food to table, kind of farm to table kind of model, and that's very state, very vertically integrated. So I thought it was helpful to highlight those things.
Could you summarize in a couple of sentences what was so interesting about Kangshifu, about the noodles and also beverages, they did. What fascinated you the most about the story?
Well, I mean, a couple of things. One is the value for money part. But what I really liked about it, I remember one time going to their sales meetings. We were working with them on distribution management, which was basically that, they had these challenge to, this was before they were really nationwide, it was quite early. And so, but how were they going to pilot a sort of a nationwide rollout? And so we had this meeting, and must have been 200 of their sales guys there. And the Wei brothers were all over this thing, and they were basically forming an army. And it was kind of fun to watch them sort of pick the sergeants, pick the lieutenants, and kind of get everybody to stand up and literally march in line and to then figure out how they're going to do this new distribution management thing. So I took away from that, like, if you want to conquer China, you need an army. And you better be personally involved in this thing, because they will fight each other. The fastest way for someone in the army to look good is to make the other guy look bad. So you're going to have to be on top of this. And but that was their success for me. I thought that was really an interesting moment.
And well, tell us about what is the state of this mega trend now in 2024? A lot of things have happened, right? COVID, economy.
Yeah, I always, you sort of say the Chinese consumer is depressed. The Chinese consumer is sad. And it's like, well, you should talk to the U.S. consumer. The Chinese consumer saves 25% of their income. So, I mean, that's fine. That Chinese consumer is fine. They're volatile. That's true, and so it's not like it was before. So, what is the basic change that we see? Like we mentioned, like the growth of the emotional consumer, and yes, for sure. I mean, we're starting to see that. We're starting to see, of course, the categories have shifted. If you look at the big growth, is now in things like education and healthcare, services, basically experiences, and there's a lot more differentiation in the marketplace. So, I mean, of course, like tier 1 rich people are very happy. Tier 1 and 2 rising middle class, not so happy. Those are the guys who are the sandwich class, and they're feeling it right now as the costs are going up and their income is not going up as fast. So there's a lot of differentiation by geography, by age, by income level, which is different. So those on the one, but underlying all of that is the fact that China continues to modernize. I mean, I think that's we've placed it in the middle because it's not the goal in and of itself. I mean, it's in a sense the rising standard of living. Maybe that's the goal, but the consumption is a product of the increasing productivity of the whole society. And, I think that's just something to bear in mind when we all sort of say the Chinese economy is going to flatline or whatever. It's like there's so much aspiration here, and there's so much expectations of things will have to get better that I can't see it not happening. And frankly, that's the way the math works.
Yeah, thank you so much. So now we have the unique opportunity for you to ask questions. When I look around, I see people here from, we have lawyers, we have people from German or European countries, soccer. Then we have your competitors. We also have here from other
former
competitors. Yeah, now good friends now. So feel free to ask questions. Lola is very, very busy. I know, we changed this date to today to have you here. So we are very happy that it worked. So if anyone has questions, do it now. We still should take some time to get a little discussion with Lola. So who has any questions for Lola?
Yeah, thanks a lot. My name is Jan. I work for PwC and avid listener of your podcast and also listen to many of your speeches. So thank you very much. It's always great sharing. So now everybody is talking about domestic consumption, right? And you already mentioned there's nothing wrong with the Chinese consumer. But what do you think? What does it take to kind of kickstart the domestic consumption? Do you think everything is fine, or what does it take to kickstart the domestic consumption in China again? To get everything a little bit going. At least that's what many people and economists think is necessary.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. As I said, China, the consumer is fine, but the market is probably not, and that reflects that where is all that income going? It's just winding up in term deposits. The Chinese banking system is just full of cash right now, and it's going to be a bigger and bigger problem. So we do want that money to come out of the bank and go into consumption or investment if you could find a purpose for it. But obviously, that will then usually number one destination for that would be real estate. And we're just trying to finish off kind of deleveraging the real estate sector. So I think that there is a real multi-generational challenge that this generation is saving so much money, and it's not like they're not going to need it. We're going to need it. We're going to need it in 20 years or 10, 20 years when they retire. And as you know, we just raised the retirement age. So government sees the train coming and they're just trying to manage it so far. So they'll have even more savings. But that has to be deployed. So there are a couple of ways that this can get unlocked. One is obviously you could restart the real estate sector. That's fairly straightforward. You could just goose it and give developers a bit more money and allow margins to go up at banks or reserve margins to go down rather, so that they can build things easier and sell more land. That would be the easy way. It would take a step back in some ways. The harder way, I think, is to find ways to take all that cash and put it in the hands of, let's call them entrepreneurs, innovation, something that looks like growth. And then there's the fake way, which is kind of what they've been doing, which is to allow for the central bank to kind of monetize these things itself, to buy this back and give debt to the consumer, which looks like a good deal, and we start to see that happening. Or depreciate the RMB, which could also happen. That was one of the things that I heard from the People's Bank. So that takes care of the problem because we just made everything more expensive. But that's not going to restart. So obviously what we want is productivity. We want innovation. We want entrepreneurship. We want the financial reforms that people have been talking about for 3 or 4 years to happen. And I think that's what needs to happen. I don't think there's any other way. Chinese people are patient. You can sit on their money for quite a long time, apparently.
Going to try one. I'm Christoph from BSF. Nice meeting you, Lola. You were speaking actually about the savings quota in China, which I think is one of the highest in the world right now, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I spoke to a professor of the CEIBS the other day, and he said the problem with the consumer, he said there is a problem, is the confidence. So how do you think that confidence problem is going to be resolved? How do we bring, or who is going to bring confidence to people to spend their money actually in China?
Well, I don't want to get something to get my gracious hosts here in trouble, but there is a reason why the Chinese consumer is not confident. This is a country without a safety net. If you get ill, that's on you. If you get turfed out of your house, that's on you. If you need to pay educational debt, that's on you. There is no help. This is not a society that helps people. This is a society that expects people to take care of themselves, especially their old people. There's no real social security, so there's no unemployment insurance. There's barely any medical insurance. People are right to be concerned. It's not like it's an accident. So, and I think they need to fix that. I mean, I think that's the problem. That's why they're not confident. They're saving for the future. It's precautionary. And there's a reason they're not spending the money. It's because local governments, the financing model doesn't allow them to spend it, and that's the only people who can spend it. There is no Medicare, there's no Medi-Cal, there's no Social Security Administration. Nobody works for these things. So they have to build the institutions to support a modern urban economy, which they do not have right now. And in the meantime, the Chinese people take it on their back, and that's why they're not confident. So either build the institutions. And so we need to accelerate that reform path. Otherwise, I think the Chinese people are long suffering, but their patience is not infinite.
Good evening, Lola. My name is Titus. I'm with EY in Shanghai. I particularly like your cross-generational history in your family. And if you don't mind, I ask a personal question. In how far are your children continuing this attachment to China?
They're coming back. They grew up here. These sort of, 1.5 grew up here. One went all the way through in international schools and then left to go to university in the United States. And it's not entirely clear whether he will be coming back now or later. The other one was here for about 10 years, and then she went to the U.S. to pursue her figure skating dream, which turned into an academic career, which is now looking like it might come back to China. So I think that, my hope is that when I raised them, I was like, 不怕中国, don't be afraid. You should just it's a normal country as soon as you live here. It might look weird from the outside, but once you understand its logic, it's great. And it was a spectacular place to raise children. I just felt this is the single best gift I could give them was Chinese language and, and comfort in China. everything else. And they're global kids. You give them Starbucks and Wi-Fi, and they'll be fine wherever. And but they're not afraid of China, and their language is okay. So I'd like to think that they will come back. And either way, they'll always have China. China will always be here, and they will always have China as part of them. It's epigenetic, and so I'm pretty confident I did my job.
My name is Chris. I'm German. I'm in China since 22 years, living in Hong Kong. So I'm curious, where is your grandfather's house? Because the Tilanshao area where the Jewish quarter is, I'm quite familiar. So most of it is torn down already. So where is the house?
No, they didn't live in there. They lived at the Garden, well, not the Jinjiang Hotel. They were in Grosvenor House. And because my grandfather was German and my grandmother was Jewish. So as a result, and he was a business person, was well respected in the community. But when the Japanese would storm through looking for people, they would tend to, kick my grandmother out of the way. So there was that. Yeah, the Tianjinlu thing, that was the office, and it's just off the Bund. It's like two or three blocks behind the English consulate towards the former British consulate, towards that way up Suzhou Creek. They lived in what is now the Jinjiang. Before it was called Grosvenor House, and now they renamed it Grosvenor House. So it's part of marketing the apartments that my grandfather used to live in. And he would have his birthday parties at the French Club, which of course is now the Garden Hotel. He went to school at the Kaiser Wilhelm Schule, which is now a Naval Research Institute on Hengshan Road. It's owned by the PLA. I'm not exactly sure what they have in it. That was then, and I heard all these stories growing up of what it was like before, during, and after and there was, thanks to the digitization of records of the U.S. Army, I have all these amazing interviews that were done by the Jewish Defense Council, which was what UNRWA outsourced the screening process to assess whether my grandparents were in fact Nazis or not, which after some debate was favorably resolved, otherwise I wouldn't be here, because they had also taken half their my grandmother's family out of Germany with them. In fact, did a round trip to Germany in 1937 when the Japanese marched in here, were met on the docks of Hamburg by my grandmother's family, was told it's much less unhealthy in China than it is in Germany. We should go back now. And so they did. So anyway, that's a lot of drama. So when people talk about drama in their lives, it's like, we survived a lot. we should be celebrating this. Shanghainese people are resilient.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Laura. I'm Marsha from Women Scoop. I want to ask a question because you have spending 40 years here. And when we are approaching something, we see like the physical and also the mental. But I also want to ask you, how do you feel about the soul of China? Goes really deep.
Wow. I hadn't prepared that. So, I don't know. I said like my favorite thing was cities, and sort of I like to design them, and because I can make a fair argument that we are just representatives of our city. That if you believe in epigenetic influences, that you're part of your environment, well, you're part of the city. And so the soul of our city is, in the case of Shanghai, is vibrant. And as I said, there are characteristics. You always say this. What is a Shanghainese person? Well, commercial, resilient, fast talking. Those kind of things reflect a certain sort of aspect of, soul, personality. Yeah, but you get into the higher level questions about that. I'm afraid I'm not going to go there. But I do think China's people are waking up. That's what I see. I see a country which has, historically been, rooted in the countryside and villages. People would live for thousands of years on two sides of a mountain and evolve entirely mutually unintelligible languages. It's like two sides of a mountain. Well, how is that? And then, in the space of 50 years, they have realized that doesn't have to be that way. And it's particularly the young people. Because migration basically happens between the ages of 15 and 25. And typically the average move is about 50 kilometers. It's somebody going from a village to a county. And then some of them go from a county to a city, or the county goes up, or whatever. So that is what has waken up. And why did they move? It's not like they had a plan. It's not like they knew what they were doing when they decided to go out hitchhike in the middle of a highway in Inner Mongolia. What they knew was that they did not want to stay in the countryside. They had no desire to be there. They did not want to work on the farm. They did not want to marry the person that they were supposed to marry, or whatever. They wanted to get out. And so they came to the city. And they came to some place that somebody said, there might be a job here, or I might know somebody here, I have a friend here. And so that, for me, is the soul of China. It's that spirit of adventure, that spirit to reinvent yourself. And I think it's still there. Of course, this was my generation. It's sort of like, the last 30 or 40 years. But first of all, we're not done yet. I mean, there's still another couple 100 million to go. And then we now have to reinvent ourselves in cities, which is a little more difficult. So because we have all these legacy things before we just left it behind. But I believe Chinese people can do that. I think they can reinvent. So that's the soul of China. It's the willingness to change, the willingness to reinvent.
Thank you.
Hi, Lola. My name is Oliver. I just arrived 4 months ago here in China. First time. So I'm absolutely a newcomer here. I think your book is just perfect for me as an introduction. So I have one question concerning the real estate business. So as I learned, one of the major income of the provinces is the selling of properties. So as they are not able now to sell anymore, I wonder how is the financing going on in the provinces if this income is not anymore there as a potential high asset they can use to finance the provinces?
Yeah, with great difficulty is the answer. But I mean, there are a couple of things that I feel like I'm compelled to respond to. One is that, this is really, first of all, a city's problem, that the majority of the problem is within cities and maybe to some extent within counties, that they are the ones who hold it all. The provinces are basically, portfolio holders. The cities are the ones, and particularly the districts. So this goes into the very fabric of the Chinese governance model. So the problem is really within Shanghai. Some districts are better than others at managing this stuff, but Shanghai is a very well managed city. It's sort of coordinated in a way which other cities are not. Beijing, you can find this. You can find some real disasters of districts. So that's where the problem is. And then, so what are they doing? Well, they're not paying their employees, for one thing. Government employees are sort of stretched at this moment. Some of them are not getting paychecks, and it sort of depends on how bad the problem is. Again, it's localized. It's within the district, and then there's a triage process. The city will bail you out, but that's obviously politically bad for you. So district leaders don't like to admit weakness. So that's one thing. Two is, debt. So we're finding, there's a lot of distressed debt out there, and people are finding various creative ways of monetizing different pieces of the government, whether it's utilities raising money themselves, or there's still some land-based deals. We have a lot of land that's out there for 10-year leases for logistics and warehouses. You should not count on that being renewed. Those leases pay no taxes. So they're all going to go back to the city, and then they're going to recycle them. I think, they're scraping and scrounging, but there's no alternative. This economy has to move from an asset-based, off-balance sheet, transaction-driven sort of model for the government to something which is more recognizable, as taxes. And, I think that we all sort of, oh my God, taxes. This is a country without a property tax. This is a country without an inheritance tax. This is a country that barely has a capital gains tax. But how do you rebalance? Because ultimately you have to go after either income or land or profits. You have three choices. You can make things more expensive for everybody. You can tax the rich, or you can tax the land. Those are your basic options. And they're trying to make that call right now. It's obviously quite difficult to answer.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for asking wonderful questions. Thank you for giving wonderful answers, Lola. was amazing. In the end, it's like I thought it would be a dry business talk here, but then we had like people, we had personal stories, we had drama, we had soul, emotion. So it was really, really interesting for me to hear this. And as we said, we would like to keep this event like we kept the book, kurz und knackig, as we say in German, very short and very effective. So thank you so much for supporting. Thank you so much for coming. And hopefully we can see each other again in Shanghai, and everyone will stay in Shanghai. People are leaving too quickly. It's very hard to make friends in Shanghai, right? You still have a lot of friends like from decades ago in Shanghai?
No, but that's okay. I like welcoming new people.
Okay, yeah, that's a positive attitude. Okay, once again, thank you so much, Lola, for being here. Thank you for being here. Thanks for your support.